Today I rise to contribute to the debate on the Water Legislation Amendment Bill 2023. The bill aims to clarify several provisions related to a framework such as the place of take approvals to ensure its smooth operation, and it aims to ensure unintended consequences and ensure that the intent of the Water and Catchment Legislation Amendment Act 2021 is delivered. This legend is also about what I often talk about: good legislation, well thought out, with practical and clear implications. Victoria is a state and ours is a country of droughts, and we are a country of floods. So we must take great care in the management of our precious water resource. Our land has suffered through drought and floods many times, and while the flora and fauna have had millions of years to adapt, we are yet to. Historically, water rights have been a source of worry and concern for some of the poorest, most vulnerable members of our society. Water rights should be a concern for all Victorians as it impacts many areas of our lives, and it is vital, particularly to rural Australians who must deal with the immediate consequences of it every day. The people affected by this bill ensure that our flood systems continue to function. Victorian rivers such as the Murray and the Goulburn support diverse ecosystems and create economic value for rural communities. So it's important for all Victorians that what we do, everything in our power to protect these waterways and to ensure that they can be used well into the future. The Victorian Water Act 1989 is a landmark legislation in water management globally and has significantly impacted the state's water usage and management of water resources. The Act, in many ways, the best possible response to the concerns about sustainability in an area faced with a growing population and an increased demand for water. By establishing a framework for the use of water resources, Victoria at the time able to ensure that our water resources were managed to world-class standard, and we have been able to see it with our own eyes. Legislation like this not only works, but creates a framework needed to continually improve the use of waterways in Victoria. Just importantly, the Water Act included provisions which ensure that Indigenous cultures' values were considered, as well as ensuring that the traditional Indigenous use of the waterways was not disrupted. The bill ensured that the Indigenous values and knowledge were considered in the management of water resources in Victoria. Indigenous knowledge of the land is in many ways far deeper than our own and goes back many thousands of years. By supplementing Indigenous knowledge with modern technologies' ability to map and predict the weather and changes in the waterways, we can better map the actions needed to protect our rivers. The Murray and Goulburn rivers are an essential part of the life of all Victorians, whether they know it or not. The proper management of the waterways is an important part of this legislation. The water systems can be fragile at the best of times, and while the use of waters for agricultural irrigation cannot and should not be stopped, we must carefully balance the health of ecosystems and the conservation of the waterways in Victoria with the use of them for irrigation. Victorian farmers have been consulted in the development of this legislation, and the greatest efforts have been made to ensure that the proper management of the water in Victoria has minimal impact on agriculture in Victoria. While it is an unfortunate reality that Victorian farmers must make difficult choices with their resources when there are times of scarcity, the Andrews government has put in place many measures to prevent any harm. Victoria has a robust drought preparedness measures and response framework which can help alleviate the effects of droughts at all levels. It includes support for Victorian farmers who can suffer dearly from the effects of drought and ensures that the response to drought is proportional to the needs of the area. While the Water Bill does try to alleviate the impacts of drought, the Victorian Government has also ensured that people affected will still be protected. To do this effectively, Victoria requires legislation which can be both enforced readily and flexible enough that it can adapt to the current changes and conditions we face. Water management cannot be static, it must be adaptable. So that we are not caught off guard by rapidly changing conditions, either by needs of the population or by the changing environment. Climate change is a major hurdle for our waterways going forward, not only by reducing the water available to the rivers, but also by increasing the demand for water for irrigation. As our climate changes, we need more water for the continuation of agriculture in Victoria. This will require increasingly careful management of our waterways, along with the implementation of new water-saving technologies to ensure the health of these rivers. The bill seeks to ensure that the waterways are managed to the best possible degree well into the future. The proposed amendment to the Water Legislation Bill 2021 will ensure that the bill's powers and applications are in line with the original intent of the Water Act 1989. It would also ensure that the terminology used in the bills is unambiguous, so the bill can be utilised to its full extent. The proposed amendment will make changes to who, when and how much water can be taken to ensure the Water Act doesn't allow for overconsumption of water and the destruction of our waterways. These amendments are an important part of continuing commitments made by the original Water Act towards protection of Victorians' waterways. President, the bill will also delay the default commencement of the new framework until July 2024. This will ensure there is enough time to engage with flood-affected communities to consult and to ensure that the rules and regulations are reasonable. For many working people in the agricultural sector, water rights are a matter of life and livelihoods, and water shortages can destroy people's lives. As such, it is crucial that we work responsibly together to manage these resources. The Water Act 1989 ensured that water resources would be used fairly and efficiently. Proper utilisation of these resources is essential, and minimising waste is also important. With limited water resources, the efficient use of them is the best way to ensure that we do not overuse our water resources. The original Act also ensured water was properly conserved. This protected against certain risks to our water resources, and it was delivered through a framework of community and Indigenous involvement in planning. The system of water allocation, which managed who can draw water and to what quantity, was a crucial tool in conserving our rivers. And in 1989, it was an excellent step to protect our waterways, but we must do more. The Murray River is a critical part of the livelihood of many Victorians, and we must protect it. We must ensure its best management. We cannot risk the livelihoods of farmers right across northern Victoria. While we cannot control the management of the Murray River outside Victoria, we can ensure that within Victoria, we manage the waterways to the greatest extent possible. And we can also work alongside the Murray-Darling Basin Authority and other Murray states as collaboratively as possible to improve delivery risks by ensuring that the legislation is up to date, fit for practice, goes a long way in achieving these goals. There have been significant changes across southernmost part of the Murray-Darling Basin over the past 10 to 20 years. That includes more water being delivered to the Murray users downstream of the Barmah Choke, while at the same time the capacity of the choke has been decreasing. While shortfalls can be because of droughts and prolonged heat waves, but it can be made much worse when the waterways are mismanaged. And with climate change expected to increase the number of hot days, peaks in daily demand are exacerbated, delivery challenges will likely continue to grow. When this occurs, water can be delivered and use of these waterways for irrigation can lead to low capacity. This can be devastating to the local ecosystem. Shortfalls in critical periods can devastate agriculture and can within a short time ruin entire harvest. That is why scarcity requires the strictest regulations. I can remember all too well the millennium drought and the impacts on our state. As climate change brings longer and hotter dry periods, the stress on the water system will continue to grow. Proper management of this requires every state and territory to work together and cooperation between the government and local communities who have deep knowledge of their local ecosystems and how they are used. Different areas within the state require a unique approach to water management. The way a farmer in the Golden Broken catchment area uses water very differently to those in the Eastern Gippsland. This means that we must consider many ways in which water is used. In recent years, we have seen the effects of the overdraining of water from our most important waterways and how it's made worse by climate change. Not only, but many other ways have things changed. New technologies such as desalination have changed how we must approach water management, and who knows what other changes will come in the decades. So these amendments must be the stepping stone to improve water rights in Victoria. There will also have to be a cultural shift towards viewing the water resources of Victoria, not as a thing to be exploited, but as an integral part of our state to be properly managed. I'm sure all Victorians want to ensure we have access to this critical part of Australian ecology, as well as everything it supports well into the future. I'm incredibly proud and working to ensure this bill continues to support Victoria. In the last election, our side this chamber promised that would be a government for all Victorians, and that's what this legislation ensures. President, we are getting on with this bill, even though it's small, because we need to provide certainty for those who use water. That means all Victorians, but particularly for those who suffered through the October 2022 floods. And I still feel the effects to this day. In fact, this bill was not considered before these floods, as this House knows all too well from last sitting week's debate. And in fact, for much of this term of the Parliament, the devastation of the floods then is real. And it is tragic. Thousands of Victorian farmers and water users were impacted in the declared systems. Where they take place, approvals framework will be implemented. These farmers must deal with enough. President, before I end today, I want to discuss a shortfall and what is the shortfall, water shortfall. It is when the water cannot be delivered when there is water needed, even when the water is entitled to be used, whether by irrigators or the environment. It happens when river operators cannot deliver water to waters. This might happen during a heat wave or the long distances from dams, which means water cannot be delivered in time. In December 22, our government published the Victorian River Murray Shortfall Response Plan to ensure that a coordinated response to any shortfall events in the Murray system. We can be as comprehensive as possible, but this place of take approvals framework strengthens compliance in this event. It means that if anyone takes more than their approved allocation during the shortfall, they will be punished. It is vital that these technical changes in the bill allow for market transparency. We need an accountable, fair water market, one that gives public access to the right information, the important information about the operation of the water market. So I'm proud the Labor Andrews government is improving accountability and transparency in our water market. This is on top of the extensive work that we are doing to ensure strict compliance is maintained. We must make clear that in Victoria we are all in this together, and we will not tolerate non-compliance with our water laws. Finally, President, while working closely with communities right across Victoria, whether it be traditional owners, farmers, irrigators and residents, to support them through the flood recovery. The former Minister for Water in the other place, recently retired Minister for Water, Minister Neville and Minister Symes, when she was Minister for Agriculture, have done the hard work on this. They've attended the community round tables in Tatura, worked collaboratively with the Victorian Farmers Federation, the peak body, and raised concerns at the Ministerial Council in Canberra. We are all in this for the long haul. As we know, this is a long-term issue and one we must all work together for. President, I commend the amendments to the House.